But next, I'd like to introduce Megan Elrule, who's a research manager at Twitter. And Megan said, I really have some great ideas on how Twitter is really reframing and reshaping the conversation directly with consumers on mobile as they're thinking about not only what to buy, but also what happens when they've bought or when they're trying to buy. So with that, just a little bit about Megan. She's responsible for research spanning telecommunications, customer service, and multicultural initiatives at Twitter. She was previously VP of Customer Service and Analytics at Trender, and she started a career at Nielsen, right? Yeah. She's a Master's of Science from NYU and an undergrad degree in chemical engineering. We have a lot of engineers on our stage today. So please join me in welcoming Megan to our stage.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about customer service and the impact that it can have on your business. So about 2 months ago, or 4 months ago, I guess at this point, I picked up and I moved to Miami with my husband and my 8-month-old daughter. And we packed the car to the brim, and we made the trek down from New York City to Miami. Well, let me back up. My husband made the trek in the car from New York City to Miami, and my daughter and I, we jumped on a plane. Sitting in a car for probably multiple days with an infant is not my idea of a good time. So obviously getting there first, and the laundry list of things that we have to do, I started to make that list, such as getting our utilities set up, registering my daughter for school, getting a new driver's license, registering to vote in the wonderful swing state of Florida, and getting our cable and internet set up. And I know that everyone kind of knows that the process of getting your cable and internet set up is a pretty painful situation. You get that kind of appointment that's a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of days if you're lucky, a couple of weeks out. You get the 4-hour window where you're waiting for them to come, and usually they come at the end of the window. So you already are aware of this kind of annoying, painful, irritating process. So obviously I wanted to tackle that first. So I got the appointment, they came in, they set our cable up, and he left. And what actually took for about 6 hours total with the wait time and getting it set up. So of course, I'm already kind of irritated, antsy. Antsy might be a good word. Sitting again, I'm not fully moved in, so we don't have toys and things for my daughter to do. So I'm sitting with an infant for 6 hours. And I go to turn the Wi-Fi on my phone, and it's not working. Wonderful. So now what? So now I'm contemplating, what do I do next? Do I call them, which we all know I could potentially be on the phone with them for 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours. My daughter's not sitting through that, so that's not going to work. And email, you get that automatic response where you could be waiting for 24 to 48 hours for them to actually respond to you. That's not going to work either. So of course, Twitter. So I take to Twitter and I tweet at them my issue. I go get my daughter ready to go out to actually expend some of this energy. And by the time I get her ready, they've already responded. What a surprise and delight. This is actually changing the way that I'm thinking about the company. I've turned away from frustrations to actual somewhat delight, if you can be delighted with a cable company. So this actually helped show me the power of this interaction on Twitter. This is a game changer, folks. Game changer. And so the main message that we want to drive home today is to respond where it matters and when it matters. The where being on Twitter and how this impacts your business, and the when being the responses and the timeliness in which you can do so to build that relationship with people on Twitter around customer service. So let's take this situation. If you call someone and you're talking to someone on the phone and all of a sudden they hang up on you, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel great? You kind of feel it's rude. You start to feel a lot of negative emotions to that. What if someone reached out to or called you and they ignored you? They didn't even pick up the phone. Again, you kind of get those negative emotions associated with that scenario. And so on Twitter, why are we doing this? Why would you not respond to someone? So if someone's reaching out to you, you're not going to respond to them. You're going to ignore them. You know, you kind of get those same kind of emotions. So we don't want to do that. So today we're going to talk about 3 things: how to connect with people on Twitter where it matters, how to connect with people on Twitter when it matters, and a quick case study around customer service sentiment and the telecom industry. So let's just set the stage. There's people that have purchase intent for your brand, and they've reached out to your customer service handle on Twitter. Only 22% of those people have actually received a response. 22%. That's a really small number. What happens to those other 88% of people that haven't received a response? Are they feeling ignored, neglected? That same kind of person that they had that feeling when you called and you got hung up on? Is it that same kind of thing? Well, I think the common misconception is that people are reaching out on Twitter because they want something for free. We actually found out that 63% are looking for acknowledgement over compensation. So I think we need to change this common misconception and just acknowledge people. They want to be heard, and they're doing so on Twitter. So look to them to actually respond to them. So we're going to hear a little bit about customer service from other people. Is there volume? I don't know how to.
All day, every day. It could be at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, or it could be during the day when you think about it. But that level of accessibility is different than how we have engaged customer service before.
You can say, like social media, a lot of the forums, you can directly speak to people who actually know what they're talking about.
I mean, like, it's just way quicker to be like, here's my problem. I can like be doing something else.
In person, you can't do anything else. On the phone, you can't really do anything. With the chat, you can do a whole bunch of stuff.
It's better than me trying to get somebody on the phone and figure out what's going on, only for them to tell me the same thing that I found out in 30 seconds on Twitter.
So we know that Twitter is a great way to connect with people in a public way. This is a public forum for people to share their concerns, their opinions, in a way to amplify their message. But it's a two-way street. Brands can also do the same. And it's a way for this interaction to be expanded away from the one-to-one to one-to-many. I also know and want to acknowledge the fact that we do have a private channel if you need to take complex issues, or if you need to take situations where private information is being shared. We have a great set of tools within the private direct message functionality. However, I think that it's great if you can actually direct these interactions in a public way, such as quick wins or turning brand detractors into brand advocates. Twitter's a great forum for you to do that in a public way so many other people can see how much you care. And this is all happening in real time and conversational. So you're building relationships with these people on Twitter through customer service and can be distributed near and far. So you can all do all of these things to be able to respond when it matters and where it matters. So to the point of amplification, we have Amy here, who has been standing in line at Starbucks for what seems like forever. And I know that everyone here has probably stood in that long Starbucks line waiting for their drink. And she gets to the counter, and they're out of her favorite drink. Now she's annoyed. What used to be that one-to-one interaction and frustration, she now took to Twitter and has amplified her message to many other people. However, Starbucks was listening, and they responded to her, and they actually reached out to her to help resolve her issue. So now we're amplifying this message even more. And then Amy, on the other end, was surprised and delighted. She was blown away by the fact that a big corporation actually responded to her. And she also shared that on Twitter. And so her message was amplified even more. So you see the amplification effect of these interactions, and it's just by responding. And so you're changing, for instance, in this case with Amy, a potential detractor into an advocate in a public way. And so responding to people on Twitter can impact your upper funnel metrics. They're more likely to share their experience in the case of Amy. They're more likely to recommend the brand, and they also have higher satisfaction. We saw that a 1-point increase on a 5-point scale, that's pretty monumental for just responding to customer service inquiries on Twitter. So how can you connect with customers on Twitter where it matters? We worked with a company, Applied Market Science, and they conducted a series of conjoint analyses. A conjoint analysis is a statistical technique used to determine how much people value certain attributes of a product or service. But before we get to the conjoint analysis, we had to determine the groups of users or the cohorts of people on Twitter that we wanted to study. So we worked with our internal GNIP team to identify 4 groups of users. We had people we found people on Twitter who had valid public customer service interactions, and we grouped them into people who had received a response from a brand and people who hadn't received a response from a brand. The third group were people on Twitter who had had customer service interactions via other channels. And the last group were people who had had no customer service interactions at all, kind of your baseline. And so we presented these cohorts of users with a series of blinded exercises. In these exercises, we had them imagine they were making real-life, real-world purchases with your typical choices and trade-offs. So let's take the airline industry, for example. We had them imagine they were making a 2-hour nonstop flight purchase in which we presented them with 3 different choices to make their flight. We varied the airline, we varied the price, we varied on-time arrival rates, seat preference, and they had to choose which flight best fit their needs or what their typical purchase would be. We did not ask them to recall whether they had a customer service interaction, nor did we ask them brand preference in order to keep this exercise observational and remove any survey bias. So we pulled all of this information together and we created a model that measured exactly how much people valued each airline. And the results we saw were astounding. Replying to tweets can actually create potential revenue. So let's just sit with that for a minute. Responding to resolvable issues on Twitter can actually increase people's willingness to pay for your average price product or service 3 to 20%. So we did this study across 3 industries, the airline industry, the telecom industry, and the national pizza delivery system industry, and we're seeing this across all these industries. So let's continue with the airline industry. We have a person that reaches out to an airline, and they received a response. Great. They're actually willing to pay almost $9 for their next airline ticket. So on average, just bear with me, go with this back of the envelope math here, but on average, a person takes 4 flights a year. So that's $36 incremental per person per year. According to the Bureau of Transportation, there are about 850 million people on average that fly per year. If we take a conservative 10% of those people and multiply it by that $36, that's $3 billion. $3 billion. So I know that that's not taking into account extenuating circumstances or economic factors, and I know there's a lot of other things that we need to account for. All of that is showing is the potential for customer service on Twitter. Not only are they willing to pay more after receiving a response on Twitter, if you can respond more quickly, they're willing to pay even more. So what we saw across these 3 industries was that 4 to 6 minute response time is a good sweet spot. That doesn't mean if you can't respond within 6 minutes to not respond at all, because you're seeing incremental impact no matter what, whether you're receiving it within the 6 minutes or just receiving a response at all. But the faster you can respond, the better. So now that we know that responding on Twitter around customer service can impact your business, how can you connect with people when it matters? So let's take a look on how to activate. There's 3 simple steps. Oh, the build is nice and messy on this one. Go ahead and build them all out. So there's 3 simple steps. Be friendly, be personal, and be responsive. Be friendly. What does that mean on Twitter? That means empathize with people around their issues. Make them feel heard and make them feel like you actually want to resolve their inquiries. So if we go back to my Comcast example, I tweeted at Comcast, which was the cable company that I chose to install my cable, and they responded back to me. And they responded with an "I'm so sorry." So it humanized the interaction and made me feel like they actually wanted to resolve my issue. The second way was to be friendly. How can you be friendly? Add your name, or add the name of the person that you're talking to. even their handle if you don't want to if you don't understand or know the name based on their profile. And then lastly, have the customer service rep sign their name, sign their initials. It humanizes the connection and makes it feel like there's someone on the other end actually there to resolve your issue. So again, taking the Comcast example one step further, is that they added my name, Megan, I'm so sorry, and had the customer service reps sign their initials. So this not only felt friendly, but it was also personal. And lastly, to hammer home the point of responses, is be responsive. You want to respond. I know that sometimes we feel that maybe 30 minutes is too long or maybe even a day is too long, but I think that people just want to feel acknowledged, and any kind of acknowledgement is good, but obviously faster is better. Again, that 4 to 6 minute sweet spot. So the last point I want to make is around sentiment. So sentiment's always a big issue on how do we connect with people around certain types of issues. So we did a case study with Applied Market Science around the telecom industry, and compared people that tweeted negatively and people that tweeted positively to see the impact. And we actually saw that people who tweeted negatively to a wireless brand were 3 times as likely to, or willing to spend 3 times more on their monthly wireless plan than people who had tweeted positively at a wireless brand. So that's 3 times the incremental. So when you put this into perspective, you kind of want to get rid of that squeaky wheel. So the takeaway here is to prioritize responding to people who are tweeting negatively. But don't forget about people who are tweeting positively. They are already your brand advocates, and you want to keep them so. So you want to acknowledge them as well and engage with them because they're likely already spreading your message. So in summary, I've covered how Twitter customer service can impact your business and create potential revenue. The 3 simple ways for you to connect with people on Twitter around customer service, and prioritizing negative tweets over positive tweets when responding. So you can do all of these things to respond where it matters and when it matters. And if you're serious about taking this direction, get on Twitter, listen to people and what they're saying to your brand, respond to them, and respond faster. The faster you can respond, the better. Thank you.
Take away. Thank you, Megan.